In the heart of Africa, where the sky stretches wide and the stars whisper secrets to the earth, there lived a young girl named Adoma. Adoma was unlike the other children in her village. She had a curious mind and a spirit that longed for the mysteries beyond her reach. Each night, as the moon bathed the savannah in its gentle glow, Adoma felt a pull, a connection as if the moon itself was calling to her. What unfolded was a tale of courage, wisdom, and an ancient bond between a girl and the moon. This is the story of the girl who talked to the moon. Adoma had always felt a pull toward the moon, an invisible thread that seemed to connect her to its silvery light. While other children of the village spent their evenings playing by the fire or huddling close to hear the elders' tales, Adoma would slip away quietly, drawn to the open sky. She would find a soft patch of grass and lie on her back, staring up at the moon as it rose, full and luminous. It seemed to her like an ancient friend, glowing with a wisdom she could not yet grasp. One particular evening, the moon was brighter than she had ever seen. Its light cascaded over the land, turning the nearby hills to silver and making the baobab trees cast long, otherworldly shadows. Adoma felt restless, her heart beating faster as if the moon's brightness carried a message meant for her. The villagers, noticing the unusually radiant moon, muttered among themselves, wondering if it was a blessing or a sign of some approaching storm. But Adoma knew in her heart that this was something different. Unable to resist, she crept out of her hut after everyone had gone to sleep. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wildflowers and distant rain. As she gazed at the moon, something extraordinary happened. A soft, melodious voice seemed to float down to her from the sky. "Adoma," it whispered, her name echoing like a song carried on the wind. She froze, her eyes wide as she scanned the area, thinking perhaps someone was playing a trick on her. But there was no one. It was just her and the moon. Who is there?" she whispered back, her voice trembling, but curious. The voice responded, soothing and gentle. "Do you not wonder why I shine so brightly tonight? Do you not feel the pull of something greater, child of the earth?" Adoma felt her fear ebb away, replaced by awe. "I do," she admitted. "But how can you speak to me? You are the moon, high in the sky." "I am more than just what you see, Adoma," the voice said. "I have watched over this land for centuries, seen the joys and sorrows of your people. Few ever listen, but you have a heart that hears. If you wish to understand my light, come to the highest hill when the moon is at its peak tomorrow night." Adoma nodded, though the voice did not wait for her answer. It seemed to know her spirit and the courage that lay within her. She watched as the moon's glow softened and the voice faded, leaving her standing in the silence of the night, her heart racing with anticipation. The next day, Adoma could hardly focus on her chores. Her hands worked mechanically as she pounded millet and fetched water, but her thoughts were on the moon. She replayed the words she had heard, wondering what she might find on the hill. The other children noticed her distraction and teased her, but Adoma didn't mind. She was already imagining the journey ahead. As the sun set, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple, Adoma prepared for her quest. She slipped her small woven pouch over her shoulder and filled it with essentials: a gourd of water, a handful of roasted yams, and a small carving of a bird her mother had given her for courage. She tied her sandals tightly and waited for the moon to rise. When it did, it was more magnificent than ever, its light almost turning night into day. Adoma felt a surge of determination as she stepped out of the village and toward the hill. The path was unfamiliar and shadowy, but she trusted the moon to guide her. Her journey was far from easy. The first challenge came almost immediately when she encountered a dense thicket of thorny bushes that blocked the narrow path. The branches, gnarled and sharp, seemed to warn her away, But Adoma was undeterred. She searched for an opening and, finding none, used a long stick to carefully push the branches aside, inching her way through. Though her arms and legs bore scratches by the time she emerged, she felt a small triumph. The moonlight seemed to shimmer more brightly, as if rewarding her effort. As she continued, the sound of rushing water reached her ears. Adoma came upon a wide stream that cut across her path. The current was swift, and there was no bridge in sight. She hesitated, unsure of how to cross. Looking up at the moon, she whispered, "You brought me here. Will you help me?" Almost as if in response, the moonlight illuminated a cluster of large stones peeking out of the water. Adoma smiled, realizing they could form a stepping path. Carefully, she tested each stone before moving forward, her balance steady despite the slippery surfaces. The cold spray of the stream chilled her feet, but she felt exhilarated when she reached the other side. The night deepened, and the sounds of the savannah grew louder. Crickets chirped, and the occasional hoot of an owl echoed in the distance. Adoma's pace slowed as the path grew steeper and the terrain rockier. Her legs ached, and doubt began to creep into her mind. What if the moon's voice had been a dream? What if she reached the top and found nothing? But then she looked up and saw the moon shining directly above the hill, as if it were waiting for her. Renewed by the sight, she pressed on, her breath coming in short gasps as she climbed the last stretch. When she finally reached the summit, she fell to her knees, exhausted but victorious. The hilltop was bathed in an ethereal glow, the light so soft and pure that it seemed to hum with life. Adoma stood, her fatigue forgotten, and turned her face to the moon. The air around her shimmered, and a mist began to form, swirling and glistening like liquid silver. The voice returned, clearer and more vibrant than before. "Welcome, Adoma," it said. "You have shown courage and strength to reach this place. Now we begin." Adoma stood at the peak of the hill, her breath caught in her chest as the silvery mist swirled around her. The light from the moon seemed almost alive, flowing down in delicate strands that danced and coiled like fireflies. For a moment she wondered if she were dreaming, but the cool night breeze and the gentle pulse of the moon's glow against her skin reminded her that this was real. She had climbed the hill, faced its challenges, and now stood in the presence of something ancient and powerful. As the mist thickened, it began to take shape. Slowly, a figure emerged, a form crafted entirely from light, radiant yet soft, as though it were made of the moon's very essence. The figure was neither male nor female, neither old nor young. It was something beyond human, a being that carried an aura of both wisdom and kindness. Its eyes, bright and glowing, seemed to hold the memories of countless centuries. "Adoma," the figure said, its voice echoing gently as though coming from all directions at once. "You have heard my call and answered with courage. Few have done so. You are the first in many generations to truly listen." Adoma felt a lump rise in her throat, a mix of awe and humility. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am the moon," the figure replied simply. "The light you see, the glow that touches your land, it is me. For centuries, I have watched over the world, lighting the darkness and guiding those who wander. But I am more than just light. I am the keeper of stories, the watcher of time, and the bridge between the earth and the heavens." Adoma's eyes widened. You watch over us? You see everything?" The moon nodded, its glow pulsing faintly. "I see the rivers as they wind their way to the sea. I see the trees as they sway in the wind, the animals as they roam the land. I see your village, Adoma, and the people who live within it, their joys, their struggles, their fears. I see it all." Adoma hesitated, her mind racing. "Then, why did you call me? What do you need from me?" The moon's light dimmed slightly, as if reflecting a moment of sadness. I have watched for countless years as the bond between the people of the earth and the world around them grows weaker. Once, humans and nature lived in harmony, respecting each other and the balance of life. But now, that harmony is fading. The rivers grow polluted, the forests diminish, and the animals are driven away. Your people have forgotten the old ways. Adoma lowered her gaze, guilt washing over her. She thought of the stories the elders used to tell about the spirits of the land and how they were once revered. Those stories were now fading, replaced by concerns of crops, survival, and the everyday struggles of life. "Why me?" she whispered. "I'm just a girl. What can I do?" The moon stepped closer, its light warming her face. "You are not just a girl, Adoma. You are one who listens. That is why I chose you. The courage you showed in coming here proves that you are capable of more than you know. And you are not alone. The light I give you, the wisdom I share will guide you." Adoma looked up, her eyes meeting the moon's. "What wisdom do you have for me?" The moon raised its glowing hands, and the mist around them began to swirl again. Images formed within it, glowing like scenes etched in starlight. Adoma saw a lush forest, its trees towering and green, alive with the sounds of birds and animals. She saw a river, clear and sparkling, its waters teeming with fish. She saw a field of crops, golden and abundant, tended by people who worked with smiles on their faces. "This is how it once was," the moon said. "A time when the earth thrived, and your people lived in harmony with it. They understood the rhythms of the land, the importance of giving back as much as they took. They sang songs to the rivers, danced in honor of the trees, and offered thanks to the animals they hunted." The images shifted, darkening. The forest became barren, the trees reduced to stumps. The river turned murky, its banks littered with debris. The fields withered, the crops failing under a scorching sun. "This is what happens when the balance is lost," the moon continued, its voice heavy with sorrow. "The earth suffers, and so do its people. But it is not too late. The balance can be restored, Adoma, if your people remember the old ways and learn to live in harmony once more." Adoma felt a surge of determination rising within her. The images had stirred something deep in her heart. A sense of responsibility, not just for her village, but for the world around her. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm. "I'll carry your message. I'll remind my people of what we've forgotten." The moon's light brightened, its glow wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. "You have a brave heart, Adoma, but remember, the path will not be easy. There will be those who doubt you, who will not want to listen. But the truth is like the moonlight, it cannot be hidden forever." With a gesture, the moon held out its hand, and a small orb of light appeared, glowing brightly. It floated toward Adoma, settling gently in her open palm. "Take this," the moon said. "It is a piece of my light, a reminder of our bond. Let it guide you when the path seems uncertain." Adoma stared at the orb, feeling its warmth against her skin. It was small, but it pulsed with an energy that filled her with courage. She nodded, clutching it tightly. "Thank you," she said softly. The moon smiled, its light radiating warmth and peace. "Go now, Adoma. Share what you have learned. And remember, I will always be watching." As the mist began to fade and the moon's figure dissolved back into the night sky, Adoma felt a sense of calm settle over her. She looked up at the glowing orb in her hand, its light reflecting the same silver glow of the moon above. The journey back to her village lay ahead, but Adoma felt ready. She had been given a purpose, a task that would challenge her, but also bring hope. And as she descended the hill, the moon's light illuminated her path, guiding her every step of the way. Adoma descended the hill with the small orb of moonlight clutched tightly in her hand. Its glow was soft, yet unwavering, casting a silvery sheen over her surroundings as she made her way back toward her village. The journey was quieter this time, as though the earth itself were holding its breath in anticipation of what she would do. The cool night air carried the distant hum of insects, and the stars above seemed to twinkle more brightly, as if they too were watching her. As she approached the edge of the village, doubt began to creep into her mind. How would the others react to what she had experienced? Would they believe her when she told them she had spoken to the moon? She imagined the skeptical looks of the elders, the teasing of the other children, the dismissive laughter of the adults. Her steps faltered, and for a moment, she considered keeping the story to herself, tucking it away as a secret between her and the moon. But the orb in her hand pulsed gently, its warmth spreading through her palm and up her arm. It was a silent reminder of the task she had been given, a reassurance that the moon believed in her even if no one else would. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and walked into the village. The first to notice her return were the children, who had been playing a game with stones and sticks near the central fire. They stopped their game and ran to her, their voices a mix of curiosity and excitement. "Adoma, where have you been? You missed the evening meal," one of them exclaimed. "Why are you holding your hand like that? Did you hurt it?" asked another, pointing at the way she cradled the glowing orb. Adoma hesitated, then opened her palm to reveal the light. The children gasped, their eyes widening in amazement. "What is it?" one whispered. "Is it magic?" Before Adoma could answer, the commotion drew the attention of the adults. The villagers began to gather, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. The elders, who had been seated by the fire sharing stories of old, stood and approached her with furrowed brows. Adoma felt her courage waver under their piercing gazes, but she tightened her grip on the orb and began to speak. "I have returned from the highest hill," she said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "I climbed it last night under the moon's light because I was cold, and there, at the top, the moon spoke to me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some exchanged skeptical looks, while others crossed their arms and frowned. One of the elders, a stern woman named Nana Efua, stepped forward. "The moon spoke to you, child?" she asked, her tone skeptical but not unkind. "What did it say?" Adoma held up the orb of light, letting its glow illuminate the faces around her. "It said that we have forgotten the ways of balance, the harmony between the earth and our lives. The moon showed me how things used to be, how our ancestors lived in respect for the rivers, the forests, and the animals. But now we take more than we give back. The moon gave me this light to remind us of what we have lost and to guide us in restoring the balance." The crowd was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. Then, as she had feared, the doubts began to surface. One of the men, a farmer named Kofi, spoke up. "And how do we know this isn't just a story you've made up? Children have vivid imaginations." "She's just a girl," another added. "Why would the moon speak to her and not to one of the elders?" Adoma's cheeks burned, but before she could respond, the orb in her hand began to shine more brightly, its light expanding to cast a soft glow over the entire gathering. Gasps of surprise filled the air as the villagers shielded their eyes from the sudden brilliance. In the glow, faint images began to appear, scenes of a thriving forest, a clear river, and fields bursting with crops. They were the same images the moon had shown Adoma on the hill, and they hovered in the air like a vision from another world. The crowd fell silent, awed by the sight. Even Nana Efua's stern expression softened as she gazed at the images. When the light dimmed and the orb returned to its original size, Adoma spoke again, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "This is the moon's gift," she said. "It speaks the truth, even if you doubt me." But the moon also said that it is not too late. If we remember the old ways and change how we treat the land, we can bring back what has been lost. The moon will continue to light our nights and bless our lives if we choose to honor the earth. The elders conferred in low voices, their expressions thoughtful. Finally, Nana Efua raised her hand for silence. "Perhaps the child speaks truth," she said. "The earth has been less kind to us in recent years. Our crops have struggled, and the rivers are not as full as they once were. If the moon has sent us a message, we would be foolish to ignore it." The villagers murmured in agreement, though some still looked unsure. Adoma saw the seeds of doubt in their faces, but also the flicker of hope. She knew that change would not come easily. But this was a start. That night, under the moon's watchful gaze, the villagers gathered around the fire to listen as the elders began to recount the old stories, tales of the spirits of the rivers and forests, of the balance that once existed between humans and nature. Adoma sat among them, clutching the glowing orb and feeling a sense of purpose she had never known before. It would take time, she knew, but the moon's message had been heard. And with each passing day, as the villagers began to remember and reconnect with the world around them, the light in Adoma's hand seemed to shine a little brighter. In the days following Adoma's return from the hill, the village began to stir with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. The glow of the moon's orb had left an impression, but doubt still lingered in the hearts of many. Change, Adoma soon realized, was like coaxing a seed to grow. It required patience, effort, and care. The elders decided to hold a gathering to discuss what they had seen and heard. The entire village came together beneath the great baobab tree that stood at the center of their community, its ancient roots sprawling out like a protective embrace. Adoma sat quietly as the elders spoke of the visions and her message. Their words were heavy with caution, but there was an undercurrent of hope. Nana Efua, the eldest and most respected among them, finally addressed the crowd. "The child has brought us a gift," she said, gesturing to Adoma and the glowing orb she held. "And whether you believe her or not, the message it carries is one we cannot ignore. Our fields have grown less fruitful. Our water is not as clear. Perhaps it is time to remember the old ways and see if balance can be restored." The villagers exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, while others looked skeptical. A hunter named Kojo stood and spoke. "The old ways are well and good, Nana, but times have changed. The land does not provide as it once did. How can we trust that this will make a difference?" Adoma rose to her feet, her heart pounding but her resolve steady. "The moon showed me a vision," she said, her voice clear and strong. "It showed me a world where the land and the people lived as one, where the rivers were clear and the forests were alive with animals. That world can be ours again, but only if we choose to honor the earth and the spirits that dwell within it." Kojo frowned but said nothing more. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. Finally, Nana Efua spoke again. "Let us begin with small steps," she said. "If the child is right, the earth will show us signs, and if she is wrong, we will have lost nothing by trying." The village agreed, though their enthusiasm varied. Adoma felt both relief and determination. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that the moon was watching over her. In the weeks that followed, Adoma and the elders worked together to reintroduce the old practices. They began by planting trees along the riverbank, their roots helping to hold the soil and prevent erosion. The villagers sang traditional songs as they worked, their voices rising in harmony with the rustle of leaves and the babble of the water. At first, only a few joined in, but as the days passed, more and more villagers took part, their skepticism gradually giving way to curiosity. The hunters, too, were asked to change their ways. Nana Efua reminded them of the ancient practice of offering thanks to the spirits of the animals they hunted. Kojo, though still doubtful, agreed to lead by example. The first time he performed the ritual, A light rain fell as he returned to the village, and some whispered that it was a sign of the spirit's approval. Adoma spent her days tending to the fields and the newly planted trees, the orb of moonlight always by her side. It seemed to pulse with a gentle energy whenever she was near the river or under the shade of a tree, as if encouraging her efforts. She began to notice small changes. The river's water grew clearer, the birds returned to the trees, and the fields, though not yet fully abundant, showed signs of renewal. One evening, as the villagers gathered for a communal meal, a young boy ran into the clearing, his face alight with excitement. "The fish have returned to the stream," he cried. "I saw them swimming in the shallows." The villagers rushed to the water's edge, where they saw the boy's words were true. Silver fish darted beneath the surface, their movements graceful and swift. It was the first time in years that such a sight had been seen. A cheer went up from the crowd, and Adoma felt a swell of pride and gratitude. Still, not everything was smooth. There were moments of frustration when progress seemed slow, and some villagers remained resistant to change. One afternoon, as Adoma worked in the fields, she overheard a group of women whispering nearby. "She's just a child," one of them said. "What does she know of the hardships we face? Planting trees and singing songs won't fill our bellies." Adoma's chest tightened, but she reminded herself of the moon's words. Truth, like moonlight, could not be hidden forever. She continued her work, trusting that the results would speak for themselves. As the months passed, the signs of transformation became undeniable. The fields began to yield more crops, the trees flourished, and the animals returned. The villagers, seeing the changes with their own eyes, grew more committed to the old ways. Even Kojo, once the most vocal skeptic, approached Adoma one evening with a sheepish smile. "I was wrong to doubt you," he admitted. "The land is healing, and we have you to thank." Adoma shook her head. "Not me," she said. "The moon gave us this chance. It is the earth's way of forgiving us if we are willing to listen." That night, the villagers gathered under the light of the full moon. Adoma stood before them, holding the glowing orb high. Its light seemed to bathe the village in a soft, radiant glow, as though the moon itself was smiling down upon them. "We have come far," Adoma said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "But the journey is not over. The earth has shown us that it is willing to heal, but we must continue to honor it. Let this light remind us of the bond we share with the land and with each other." The villagers erupted into cheers, their voices rising to meet the moon. As Adoma looked around at their smiling faces, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had been chosen to carry the moon's message, but it was the village working together that had made the vision a reality. And so, under the watchful gaze of the moon, the village flourished. The story of Adoma and the moon became a legend, passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of harmony, courage, and the light that shines even in the darkest times.